Okay, so what I've got here is we have two servers, and I want to show everybody and get everybody up to speed on where they're located. This server that I'm showing right now, this IP address, is located in Europe. We set this up before. We had a different server that was located in Poland, but unfortunately, what's interesting, what we found out was when we tested this, for some reason the ISP was blocking 873, that port 873, which is very important, especially for when you start as the destination server to be able to make sure your router has that enabled. Okay. And what we have here in the DSS US side, this is also set up as source and destination as well. Okay, so now just want to make sure. So we have our US server here, and let's go ahead and perform it so you guys get the whole spectrum of how to do this. First of all, data replication is based for the NAS shares for the files. It's not for the block or iSCSI or fiber channel. That's going to be for volume replication. Currently, I'm using the latest version, which is 5845. Now, if we go start off, let's get in the beginning here. First, just to go over a lot of this you already know. You already have your volume group already set up. Here we have the volume group VG00. I've created a NAS volume, very simple, 10 gig. You can have terabytes if you want. Just make sure that the pipe size is sufficient enough to be able to have your replication window available. So if you're looking to replicate a terabyte of data and you need to do it in a short period of time, make sure your ISP speed can handle that. And once I create my NAS Logical volume, here you'll see LV002, and then below I create a snapshot volume. And what size, typically we ask, what's the best size for a snapshot volume? Typically it ranges anywhere between 3 times the amount of new data you expect to have. So let's take for an example, you have 100 gig worth of new data. You might want to have a 300 gig snapshot that'll last you a long time. Some will also say, well, I can use just 10 to 12% of the total logical volume size. And yes, you can do that. We have a lot of knowledge base articles about what is recommended for the size of the snapshot. If you just go into our search engine on our website, and I can show you very easily later on, is you type in snapshot, it will bring you up a knowledge base, what size of my snapshot it should have. And once you create your snapshot, make sure you assign it to the logical volume, the NAS logical volume that you created. Just to verify, you can go right down on the bottom here, and you'll see the snapshot definition assigned to LV0002. All right. Now, I've already placed data in there, but let's verify on NAS shares that we have data in there. So here we have the source. Right here, we'll just use this one. They're all the same. We have data in here. So that's good. That's what we need to have. Now, on the destination side, what we're going to need to do is we're going to have to make sure that this share, right now, the destination share that we have, there's no data in there. You can have existing data in there. But when you start the data replication, you want to make sure that you take the don't delete file option off. That way your existing files on your destination share will be preserved. If not, it will be deleted. And we'll go over that as we perform the data replication. So right now there's no data involved, or nothing's in here in the files. It's all clean in the share. And what we're going to have to do on the destination side is we're going to have to go to NAS Settings and enable the data replication agent. What you want to do is scroll all the way down. And here we want to select Data File Replication Agent. Make sure that's applied. Then go back to your share. And here we go to Destination. And what we want to do is enable that share to have the Data Replication Agent on. And here, you want to put a login name and password. Let's go ahead and do that so I can simulate that. And then we'll use the password the same, Open-E, and then we'll confirm it. You can also put an allow IP address. So if I really wanted to get rule specific to make sure for security reasons I can go ahead and enable the IP address as well from my source server. Now once this is completed, let's go ahead and bring it up to the top. We know that we have and get everything set up. There's no files in here. Now let's go back to the source here in the United States. We have our files. We already have our snapshot. We've enabled the data replication, and now at this point we're ready to go into maintenance, backup, and then get ready to start our task. Now remember, we're going to need to enable the port 873. In the beginning we ran some tests. We couldn't be able to get the replication going. We found out, even though we checked our routers, the log files looked good, we found out from the ISP they were blocking the port 873, which was very strange to us. We know that some places do block certain ports, but it was interesting for us that we found 873 was blocked in Europe. So we changed to a different location in one of our offices and had no problem. If you are in a NAT environment, a network address translation environment, where you have unsanctioned IP addresses and you're behind a private network, you want to make sure that if you are, you want to set up your firewall to make sure that all the IP addresses for that destination is enabled. Let's go ahead and log into our Cisco router. And it could be different variants of routers. If you have a D-Link or other types of routers or firewalls, basically this is kind of similar to some of them, but we'll just go over a general overview. So here I have a port forwarding is where I'm going to set up my port 873. And this is what we call DREP, just for short, data replication. And this is my internal server, which is a 192.168.1.220. So let's go ahead and take a look at that so everybody gets an idea. Okay, in some of the firewalls and routers that are out there in the industry, they all don't have specific ports already named, so you may have to create a custom configured rule. So here we just went into custom services and we went ahead and created that rule for 873. Now notice that we're just using TCP, so we're not using UDP on this. If we take a look at it, it's very simple. We've already set the name for it. We've selected TCP, and the start port number is going to be 873, and the finish is going to be 873. And once you've configured that, then now you need to go ahead and run your data replication services, because your port forwarding is now working for the DSS server pointed to the 1.220 for the third and fourth octet here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our source, and we'll call this test. We're going to select our share, source, and immediately it pulls up the snapshot that's assigned to it. Now we need to enter the destination IP address. So it's going to be 93.179.42.77. At this point, it's going to search for the destination share. Immediately, it finds the two shares available. So here we'll just take the destination share. And remember, we had that username and password that we have entered in there on the destination. It was Open-E, and the password was Open-E. If I'm not going to be using any of the access control lists, it's probably a good idea to take it off, especially if you don't have any ADS or if you're not using any access control list on the destination. It'll speed the replication up faster. So for me, I'm really not going to be using any of the access control list for my NAS shares for this. Don't delete files. And what this means is if there is files that are already residing on the destination server, they won't be deleted. If this option is not enabled, it will delete them and then replicate the source files to the destination share. Okay, so now we have our task created. We see that it outlines the destination IP address, the source is the share, the snapshot, and the destination. And so it gives you the information and the action items. Now I can go ahead and click the play button at this point in time, and the data will start being replicated. But before I do that, I thought I'd probably give you the opportunity to take a look at some of the task schedulers. Here you'll see the task is right here on the left, called test. And now you can see I can create different types of scheduled tasks. Now the interval is obviously for if I want to do it for every 10 minutes or 15 and so forth, all the way to a 24-hour period. Now in some cases this might be something you need to do. In other cases you may not want to do this because it could be just that you only need it once a day. And you could do the 6-hour time period or 12-hour. But if you need something more specific, click on the weekly. And here you have a little bit more of an advanced opportunity to set up different days and structures. So for today is Tuesday, and if I wish to send it to, let's say, at 6 o'clock every day and every week, or even do every even or odd weeks. So we'll go ahead and apply this, and we'll just say drep for data replication. Oh, too many spaces. I can't use spaces. Forgot about that. There we go, drep. And so now I have a schedule. Now I can create more schedules as I move forward. So you can add another one. You can even add, let's say, an interval of 10 minutes and add another one and another one and so forth. Just keep in mind you don't want them to overlap. Also keep in mind if you have any backup task running, that the backup will have higher priority over data replication if you are using the same snapshot. I don't recommend using the same snapshot for all different task functions. So I do recommend that, storage is cheap in many ways, so it's just as easy to create additional snapshots and assign those snapshots for, let's say, backup tasks or any other tasks that you have. So now let's go back to our data replication tasks that are available. Let's go ahead and click the play button. And now you want to verify if the data is being transferred to the destination. One way you want to check, well, you could actually go to the destination server to verify that the files have been transferred. The other way is to be able to go to status, tasks, and here is the last one that we've done right now. So if you look, its status is finished. It transferred 18 files, overall 18, but the file transfer is 12. Total amount sent, and then of course the transfer rate. And of course you see the snapshot. So it pulls the snapshot first before the data replication begins, because the data replication is really replicating from the snapshot. We don't want to do that from the logical volume itself. It could slow it down. So this adds performance as well as utilizing the snapshot capabilities. So now let's go ahead and take a look at our destination server, and let's do a refresh. And here we have now the same files as the source from the United States to Europe. Now we're going to do this on a different way now. What we're going to do is we have files on the source in Europe. Let's go take a look at them. Okay, they're different files. So what we're going to do is we're going to transfer these files back here to the United States. So we reverse the process. So just recapping again, you can have, let's say, a share that's in Europe that has files that are very important, but you don't want them to be on the same share. So here you can name these shares anything you wish, U.S. to destination or Europe source to go back to U.S. So you can set it up as many ways as you want. You can have many different replicated tasks. So you can have multiple DSS servers all over the world and creating multiple tasks to replicate the data to all of them. So you can even now take this information, bring it back to the United States to a different share if it's to be modified. So if we take an instance like this, what we'll do is we'll just make sure that the United States share is available. Remember, first we want to make sure our NAS settings, we have the data replication agent enabled. We do. Then we want to go to the share itself. And we'll see that we have a destination here. We do. And we have files in here. So let's do this. What we're going to do, let's go ahead and delete some of these files. And I'm going to show you something. And you can delete from here. Keep in mind that if you delete from here, the only way to really get it back is you want to make sure that you can do a restore from logical volume, but just don't create any more logical volumes if you get into that situation. Now, what we'll do is we're going to go into the source. We're going to add these two files. Just give me a minute. We're going to open up another link. Give me a second. Having difficulties with the. Let's close that program. Now we'll put destination, we'll put one file in there so you can simulate when we put don't delete the remote files, we're going to do that option, leave it open so you'll see that file is deleted. Okay, so now we have only one file in there, it could be many files, and I'm trying to simulate so you can all understand when we use that one option from the source that file will be gone. Okay, then there's a question. I'll get to some of the questions that come up. Just give me a minute here, and let's finish this off, and I'll come back to your questions in just a second. So right now, we don't have this source that we have. It was a cert file. If you see right here, let's make sure you get an SSL cert 2. Okay, and these are all the files in the Europe source. Now we're going to replicate these files, but with that option to delete any files, be it unchecked, you're going to see that it's removed. So these are the files, that file is not in there. So now let's go ahead and start our replication task. Oh, and we do want to make sure that for destination, you want to make sure that the data replication agent, the username and login are the same. We don't have to have one. In fact, let's not put one in so some of you can see the difference here. Okay, now let's go to maintenance, backup, data replication. There we go. All right. And let's create our task. We'll call it test. We're going to choose the destination share. So the Open-E source. Snapshot immediately. And now we're going to set the IP address for the remote location here in the United States. It's going to find the share. And we found 3 shares. And we're going to select destination. And let's verify. Let's go back to the NAS resources, into our shares, into destinations. And we should have that one file in there. That's correct. Okay. Now, we're going to leave this option, don't delete files. We're going to take that off, and that's going to be removed. We don't have a user agent login or a password. Okay, now we've created our task. We're not going to create a task schedule, let's say an interval or a weekly task. We're just going to go ahead and then click the play button. Okay, and we're going to check our status. Okay, we're going to go back to our maintenance into backup. What we should do is see this task run. We'll just apply even an interval task and run later because I want to show you guys later on something else that's interesting. So we'll leave that task running. And we found that the WAN IP address on the Europe side is a little slower, so that's why it's taking a little extra time. On the United States side, we're using a cable modem. It's about 28 meg down and it's 5 meg up. On this side, it's a little bit slower as we're using less. It's like a half of a T1. So that's where the time takes a little bit longer, and as you can see, finished. So here's the one that we just created. It sent the files. That's why we kept it very small. It pulled up the snapshot first, then it performed the data replication. Now let's check to see if that file resides, and let's refresh it. And now we're back on to the destination side and the United States side. And there are our files, and of course now you can see that SSL file, that certificate, has been removed. So that's why I wanted to bring a point out that you want to make sure you use that one feature very carefully, because we've had some phone calls and tickets. People have claimed that they didn't read the manual or they didn't understand how it worked, and that's why we're doing this WAN replication, especially with some of that option of don't delete files, because they did lose files. So we've seen a couple times of that happening where they didn't pay attention on that one feature. So that's why I really make a point out of it. Okay, there's some questions that are coming up, and so I want to get to everybody. Here's one that's coming in and says, is there a way to see how much of the snapshot has been used in flight? You can check the status of snapshot if you go to status, logical volume. And on the snapshot, whoops, I took it to the wrong place, but all the snapshot size, their information is also in the logs as well. But typically on the snapshot utilization side, it will tell you if you get filled up with notification. But on flight, no, not exactly the way you would think it is by showing the amount of snapshot frame time. So if you look, let's say we go into, let's go into maintenance and snapshot. And you see snapshot here, you know, it's basically going to tell you it's unused, and you're going to see the size, it's 2 gig, and then you're going to be able to see the amount. But you're not going to be able to say, okay, if I'm doing the replication, then the snapshot that for the amount of data I'm using, it's not going to show you how much snapshot is being reserved at that point in time. Because the snapshot is a point in time, so we're using copy on write. Here's another question. If I need to set up several replication tasks, how many gigabyte of RAM do I need? It depends. I mean, we had one case where basically he was using, 3 million plus files, and it ended up being 3 terabyte. It ended up being more instead of RAM. It actually needed more the snapshot size, though. If we were talking about RAM itself, he had 24 terabytes in the system. Would you use 4 gig of memory? No, I wouldn't. If you're using a lot of snapshots, which he did, and he had many replicated tasks, so he was doing 3 terabytes on one replicated task with multiple snapshots, and he had a backup, well, you're going to draw more resources from that. So in that case, you probably want to use with, let's say, a 24 terabyte system with a lot of replication tasks going on, the way you're asking right now, let's say you had 5 and there are millions of files, there's a lot of activity on the NAS, you're probably doing some backups. I would do for a 24 terabyte with that much activity, I'd probably go up to about 8 gig of memory to be sure, and that way you'll be fine on resources. I mean, you can view the status right here in status hardware to see how much memory the system is using. Now, obviously, we didn't put that many files to replicate. So you can see I have plenty of free memory available. And the system is not using that much memory either. So for many tasks, but is it many replicated tasks with a lot of snapshot volumes firing off at the same time, or many replicated tasks at the same time, then more memory will be used, but not as much as you would think. Next question, is the process similar for iSCSI volumes? Well, if you're going to be replicating in iSCSI volumes, you're at the block level. Let's take a look at that. If you're, let's say we go into the volume manager and we'll go right into, let's create a iSCSI volume to demonstrate this. Here, if I create a new iSCSI volume, I'm giving the option to use volume replication. Now, when I do that, there is a rule of thumb here that for, let's say I'm replicating from 0.03 terabyte to 4 terabyte, I'm going to need 128 meg of memory. And this is necessary. And you can see that right here, we also carve out a certain percentage for data replication for the metadata. So keep in mind that if you have 0 to 4 terabytes, you're going to need 128 meg of memory. From 4 to 8 terabytes, you're going to need the double amount. So it doubles. For every 4 terabytes, it's another 128 meg of memory. But even 128 is not that much. So, for an extra gig of memory, you're going to have sufficient amount of memory to perform iSCSI or fiber channel volume replication. Okay, there's another question that came up. In volume, let me just make sure if I got this right. In volume replication, both volumes have to be the same type and size. Does similar restrictions apply to this here? Okay. In volume replication, yes, but not in data replication. Though we did see some cases on tickets that we have troubleshooted, we found out that the destination share did not have enough space, so they received an error 12 or an error 33. So here the destination was much smaller than the total size. So if he had, let's say, the source was 10 gig and the destination was 8 gig, and they didn't realize it. At that point in time, it's real easy to increase the size of the NAS volume for the share. So if I wanted to increase let's say the small NAS volume that he set up, what we would do is just go to modify that logical volume, and we would add, let's say, whatever the increment is, 2 gig. Okay, we got to deactivate the snapshot. So there's a task associated with it. So it's very simple. All we do is just unassign it. And bear in mind, if the task has been scheduled to run, it won't run because the snapshot needs to be enabled. And here you got to stop the task also. Then increase and modify the size, and you'll be good to go. Now with the iSCSI and even NAS or fiber channel volumes using our volume replication, yes, they must be exactly the same. And they also need to be from 32-bit or 32-bit to 32-bit or 64-bit to 64-bit. You cannot mix match them. Data replication you can. So next question. Let's see where we're at. Here's one. What is the preferred method doing a WAN replication between 2 DSS servers using iSCSI targets? So what he is stating here is we have an EXI server running Exchange 2010 virtual machine, but when replication is turned on, the email server slows down tremendously. Well, that's because we're synchronous. So think of synchronous replication as a RAID 1 mirror. So your replication task is for volume replication. I know we're getting off the subject, but we try to answer everybody's questions. For volume replication, it's synchronous. So in that case, what we recommend, if in WAN replication, to have a very high WAN speed. Now that's very costly, as we all know. Now, the other option is to use a task scheduler with the synchronous volume replication. But be careful in doing that, because what's going to happen is if you have you're going to have a backlog of data, and you better have the WAN speed to replicate. If you have, I had a customer who had a 3 meg pipe, and he was expecting the data volume replication to perform at 1 gig E. How can you? There's an old saying, you're only as fast as your slowest link. Next question. Is the snapshot, okay, here we go. Is the snapshot only in use for the replication period, i.e. snapshot starts, replication ends, snapshot is closed? Doesn't seem to imply that sequence in the logs. Okay, once the snapshot is called upon, the data replication calls the snapshot, snapshot takes a snapshot of the NAS Logical volume, data replication then, at that point in time, replicates the data over to the destination until it's complete. Once it's complete, the snapshot task is no longer issued, unless there is no end time. And so you need to understand that if there's no end time, the snapshot's always going to be available. Similarly, if you just had a regular snapshot, let's say we have a snapshot, let's go put him back onto logical volume 002. And to ask your question, he's referencing it doesn't seem so in the sequence and the logs, right? So I think that if in the logs it should show, there's 2 types. What you're probably looking at is in the task logs. In the task logs, you'll see from underneath that Chrome directory. And if you shoot us offline an email ticket, we could show you which ones it is. But you look at the replication or the rsync logs they call upon it, and if you look at the snapshot logs, you're right, they kind of don't. But if you look at if we go to maintenance and snapshot, here, if I set a start time, let's say 1 a.m. in the morning, but I don't put a stop time, that means that snapshot, if I enable that snapshot for any of these days or a particular day, that snapshot is going to be available for 24 hours until the next schedule starts, which will be at 1 in the morning. Now, if you put a stop time, let's say we put a stop time of from 1 to 2, then that snapshot will be available during that time. So it's similar to with the data replication task. So if you have it ongoing if you have it scheduled the same way, where you start it and it finishes, the snapshot will be completed and released and back into the available pool to be used even with backup. That's why we recommend really to create more than one snapshot for a particular task. Capacity is inexpensive, and we're not really looking for that much or big of a snapshot that's needed. So again, if let's say you only have 50 gigs of data being added or new data a day, then only 150 gig snapshot is all you really need. Hope that answers your question. While waiting for some other questions come in, I wanted to show you that we have our new location for all the webinars. If we go here into the support and then we go to libraries, you'll see also the webcasts and videos and how-to resources located right in the section. So we post these up as much as possible. We had a popular one about, especially with the RAID controller sending the email alerts. This one right here, so there was a big show up on that one. Please check it out because a lot of people and a lot of tickets that we see, they're not set in. So we have people that never got an alert. My RAID controller never informed me. You probably want to do that and set that up. Another area I definitely want everybody to really take a look at, because there's a lot of valuable information right here. Here it's our blog section. We have a lot of information, especially for setting the cache, the right cache on the RAID controller, performance speeds. This just has a plethora of information for everyone. And also what to do in case you need asynchronous volume replication is needed, which goes back to your other question of using the Exchange 2010 over a WAN WAN replication using volume replication. You might want to take a look at this, because I had some interesting forum users ask about this as well. But this section is a real good, interesting one. It talks about it. And Acronis is a good product to use as well to use this. So here you can say if a user is running MS SQL Exchange Server, and there's special software agents available to pick consistent database images, especially using data replication feature for slow WAN connections.